So you just had a really good call. The prospect loved it. They said, this looks great. I'm just going to go and get sign off, but we should be good for this month. You put the phone down thinking, yeah, this deal's coming in, and then nothing. 1 week, you follow up. Yeah, still reviewing. 2 weeks. Yeah, I'll come back to you. 3 weeks. They say, oh yeah, it's still under review. You think you know what's happened, but in fact, you've got no idea. I'm going to about show you the 6 critical things that you need to cover in your sales process if you want to avoid being ghosted or having great conversations or great demos, and then your deal's going nowhere. If you're wondering who I am, my name's Joe Milnes. I'm the founder of Revitech. I've coached over 300 founders to generate over £185 million in closed B2B revenue. And implementing just one of these 6 things in this video, if you are guilty of it, will make a massive difference to your close rate. Let's dive in. So here's what most people think kills their deals. They think, oh, my price is too high, or it's not really the right product for them, or it's not really a great timing, or there's just a bit too much competition. But that's wrong. Most deals don't die because the prospect said no. The deals die because the prospect just hasn't got the information to move away from the status quo. You have to imagine there's a massive elastic band that is pulling the prospect back towards the status quo, doing what they've always done. And it's your job as a salesperson to build a big enough gap so that it snaps that elastic band and they can make a move to the future, the new world where everything's better and it's with your product or service. Your job isn't to pitch harder, and you shouldn't have to worry about competition, because if you follow this simple framework, you'll easily position yourself as a market of one and won't have to worry about competition. Plus you'll snap the elastic band, making it easy for the prospect to decide to go with you. Let's dive in. The first deal killer in B2B sales is a surface level discovery. If you listen to poor discovery, unless you ask right questions in discovery to build a business justification, then you're going to be scuppered throughout the rest of your sales process. Discovery is the most important part of becoming a good salesperson. And when you listen to discovery gone wrong, what happens is it stays on the surface. So you'll ask one question, then another, and there'll be surface level questions that might sound big and clever, like what's keeping you up at night? But actually in reality, it's just a surface level because you never go deeper. Great discovery should be like you skim along until you find a problem and then you go deep. So you get the prospect to expand and you have a much higher quality conversation. You'll ask questions like, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Okay, when you said a few, exactly how many do you mean? And how often does that occur? And what's the business impact? What happens after that? Okay, and what would it mean to your business if you get that completely eradicated? See, just one topic, but you have 4 or 5 questions to get a really deep understanding. The easiest thing to do is to think, when a prospect is speaking, think, do I know exactly what's going on here? Often the answer is no, in which case it's your job to follow up to get the better information. If you can't build a business justification, then there is no business justification, and then your deals won't go anywhere. Which brings me to deal killer number 2, and that is there's no quantified business case. B2B sales is all about building a business justification. That's the only job of a business, is to deploy capital, money, resource, effort in the direction that is going to most propel the business forward. So if you can't show a business justification for your product or service, then a business is not going to invest because there is no business justification. If we rely on prospects to build the business justification, then we're not going to get anywhere. And that's where you'll be stuck in a land where you're just taking orders from people who would have gone with your solution anyway because they wanted to do it, and you're just taking orders. Most of us aren't in a luxury where we have people just coming begging us for our solution all the time. So we have to engineer and build the business case for the prospects, and you won't be able to do that unless you've asked the questions in the first part. But to be able to put a business case together, you need to understand the problem that the prospect is trying to solve. You need to know the business impact, so what that means for the business and what it's stopping them doing. You need to be able to quantify that, so saying by staying here and not making a decision, it's costing you X. That could be risk, exposure, revenue, competitive advantage, market share. It could be anything, but you have to be able to quantify it and put it in a business case. You have to be able to help the prospect to understand what the root cause issue is so that they can clearly see and understand why your product or solution will help resolve that. And ideally, you want to be able to tie your product or solution as a means for them to fulfill their bigger business goals. The closer you can get in terms of positioning your product or service to the big business priority or the key KPIs or the key stakeholder initiatives, like executive level, then the easier it is going to be to get the attention of people who are signing your deal off. It's very easy if you're dealing with founders because most of them just want more revenue or more time or more efficiency. But as you get bigger, more complex sales, then it's really important to try to latch on to a big key initiative that's going to be mentioned in their all hands meetings or their team meetings, at least with directors that are there. You need to be able to tie it to something that's visible with the directors. The easiest test is to go through the process of writing. I've done another video on the one-page business case, which I'll link in the description. But you want to be able to write a one-page business case that a CFO could pick up and read and sign off after a minute. Sounds ridiculous, but when you see the one-page business case and how powerful it can be, if you lay everything out in facts, then it makes it very easy for a prospect to make a decision. And the third deal killer is that you haven't got assets that sell for you when you aren't in the room. So your proposals or your documents will be written about you as opposed to making it very clear what you're solving for that prospect. Any stakeholder in the prospect should be able to pick up your proposal or a one-page business case and see exactly what the problem is that you're solving, why that company should take action, and why they should take it with you now. If your assets aren't addressing that and they aren't fighting your case, then they're not doing anything. And to be honest, they're pointless having them. Copy is one of the most powerful persuaders because you don't have to be there speaking to them for them to do it. People, CFOs, can pick it up when they're on the toilet or in the office or after work or on the bus and see why they should take action, and you've got an asset that sells for you when you're not there. If you imagine your champion going in to say, oh yeah, I really think we should do this, and the person who's approving it says, well, I don't see why we should. You want them there with assets that will make it very clear why they should do that. If they're just holding a generic proposal, which all it has is loads of generic case studies about all the marvelous brands that you've worked with and nothing actually about that business or why they should take action, then you can't be surprised if prospects just deprioritize solving the problem because you haven't made it easy for them to see why they should take action. And again, that just leads to more ghosting. And on the subject of ghosting, deal killer number 4, and this is a big one, is you haven't got process control. You need to be able to guide the prospect through the sales process. This is one of the easiest ways to increase the speed of which you sell and increase the amount which you sell. And it's called the bookends concept. The reason this kills deals is if you are not guiding a prospect through, then it's very easy for noise or the environment to put people off doing it. Inboxes are busy. People have to go and advocate for you. People have to make a decision. They have to absorb your proposal. That all takes effort. If you're not guiding a prospect through and then just expecting them to re-engage, it's so much more effort. You have to try and chase them. You have to get them back on a call. You have to bring them back with any other stakeholders. A proposal is not a boomerang. If you throw it over or send it via email and just expect the prospect to pick it up, read it, find out the answers to the questions that they've got when they're reading the proposal on their own, then go and take it and sell to their other stakeholders and do all of that for you just because you're too lazy to book a call and walk them through it. Don't be surprised if you don't get deals through. Every proposal or quote that you sent, you should say, right, I'm going to put this together. I think I've got all the information that I need. I'm going to put something tailored together, which I think will be absolutely perfect for your business. The step after this, if we get to the end of the call and you haven't said no, is I'll book a call. What you should be doing is you should be explaining to prospects on your discovery call that the next step, if this makes sense, is I'm going to put together a tailored recommendation, which will be step by step how you can get to your goal. It'll be tailored specific to your business, and what will happen is I'll walk you through that on another call so you can ask me questions and I can walk you through the recommendations step by step. Is that okay? So every single call, you're booking the meeting in the diary, and it's called the Bookends Framework. So it means that at the start of every call, you say, this is what's going to happen. This is what you're going to get at the end of it. This is what the next step looks like. Is that okay, Mr. Prospect? And they say yes. And then you have the call, and then at the end of the call, you say, well, we haven't said no to each other yet. Given what you've said, so let's get that next step in the diary. Would you have any objections? No. And then rather than sending something over and then having to get it back, You're saying, look, I'll put together something tailored for you. The next step after this will be, we'll prepare a recommendation, which is your proposal, and then we'll set a call where we can walk you through step by step everything that you've got, and then you can ask questions whilst we're on that call. Does that sound all right? Yes. So you're setting expectations at the front. You're asking the prospect if that's okay, which is super important because there's a thing called the consistency principle. If you're not familiar with that, you read Influence by Robert Cialdini. But if it uses the consistency principle, so you're asking the prospect, is that okay? They're saying yes, which means they're much more likely to follow through. You'll have a much better conversation. Then at the end, you're saying, okay, well, we haven't said no. Next step is this, as we discussed at the beginning of the call. Take it that's okay. Yes, let's get that booked in. But if you're guiding the prospect from one stage to the next, it makes it much easier to keep control. You're not having to fish about trying to bring the prospects back after they've got busy or someone's gone away, and it makes it much easier to close deals quickly. A note for the editor, make that section much shorter. So just take the end bit, which is where I started at the beginning of the call and then the end of the call. The first half of that section you could cut off. And then deal killer number 5, which is not for everyone because not everyone does this, but demoing features and just demoing your product rather than demoing your ability to solve a problem. People think that a demo should involve you walking through all of your solution because all of those features which you're really proud about and you think are really ace, you want to show to the prospect. But in fact, you're forgetting the prospect doesn't care about you. They don't give a shit about your product or the service. The only thing the prospect cares about is whether you can help them get what they want. So all you need to do and should be focused on in demos or proposals is you're proving your ability to solve the problem for your prospect with your solution. So for the demo approach, rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to do a full platform walkthrough so I can show them all the features. Yeah, brilliant. What you want to be doing is you want to map out the 3 to 5 biggest pain points that your prospect has and map those out to the 4 or 5 features that your product does, which solves those pain points. So if you can't map a feature over here to a pain point over here, you don't demo it. Yeah, I know that sounds bizarre, but the truth is by demoing features that aren't related to a problem that your prospect solves, then you're just guessing whether it does. And what you're doing is you're using up attention and you're devaluing, I know this sounds silly, you're devaluing your product or service, because if the prospect is looking to solve these problems and you're saying, well, it's 100K for our product or service and it solves all of these problems, they're thinking, that's amazing. If it's 100K and they're thinking, but you show me 25 features and I only need 2, even though you're solving the problem, the prospect's thinking, but I don't need to pay for all these other features. It's overkill. So by presenting all of the other features, you're actually devaluing it because they think, well, I don't want to pay 100K for that because I'm only going to use 20% of that. And that's the way psychology works, which is why it's so important to only demo the features on your demo that solve a problem or a pain point for your prospect. And that's it. So quick recap. The things that are killing your deals and need to address if possible are surface level discovery. So going from question to question to question rather than drilling down and getting emotional business impact and quantifying the cost of inaction. Number 2 is no business case. You aren't able to put a business justification together. And if there's no business justification, there's no business justification. You haven't got assets that sell for you in the room. So ideally, any stakeholder in your prospect should be able to pick up a document and see what problem you're solving, why they should take action, what it's costing them, and why your solution, it makes sense to do that. You got no process control. That's the killer. So every call should have an opening bookend where you set the expectations and then closing bookend, which is where you're booking the next step in the diary before you put the call down. And then demos that don't feature vomit, and then you're demoing and then demoing but feature vomiting. If you're victims of any of these and you need to cut them out of your sales process, I've got other videos to explain things about how to do discovery and how to do the one-page business case, which I'll also link in this video. If you want me to cover any of the items in this video in more depth, then just let me know in the comments. And if you want to see what is wrong with your sales and marketing process, We will do a full diagnostic of all of your sales and marketing process to tell you exactly where you could close more deals. And we will give you a full comprehensive workshop, which is 90 minutes plus the output, which we used to charge £3,500 for, but you can get it for £1. Just click the link in the description, book a qualification call with me, and then I will see you on the other side. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.